So, online meetings are a new normal for many of us in the year 2020. If you didn't work from home before, this is kind of a little bit of a culture shock for you, but it seems that virtual work isn't really going anywhere. So, I want to offer up 5 tips to make your online meetings more bearable to you and more bearable to your coworkers. So, tip number 1, breathe. This might seem super obvious, but we actually know that there's a concept called Zoom apnea, in which people hold their breaths or breathe very shallow during their meetings. And as you can imagine, this would be quite unpleasant for the person that this is happening to, but also quite unpleasant for the people in which this person is having meetings with, because this would activate the sympathetic response and have them feel a lot of stress, and they would potentially exude quite a bit of stress. So when you are in your next meeting, I would advise you to kind of monitor your breath and see how you're kind of holding in breath instead of breathing deeply. This might also show up as kind of like clenched muscles, like you might feel very tense. And so you really want to kind of counteract those side effects by overcompensating for them. So you want to really actively take deep, long breaths, and you want to actively try to relax your muscles. Tip number 2, create an optimal setup. So many of us think that, we can just kind of open up our computer and take the meeting and it's all good, which it is. But the thing is that there actually is an optimal setup for connecting better and just really making the meeting experience more enjoyable for the person you're meeting with. So most of us, when we take meetings, we kind of look like this, like right here, like this. Our computer is like under us, it's like super close. And what happens with this is that we actually don't want our computer that close. And the reason for this is because when we interact in real life, RL, we actually use a lot of nonverbal communication signals to interpret what the other person is saying. So for example, like here you can see my hands, I use my hands a lot, and it actually helps you kind of understand like what points I'm making. And when you can't see somebody's upper body in a meeting, you're not able to really kind of interpret all of their communication, because if you only see their face, this is all you have. And that's not really how we talk to each other in real life. So that is more cognitively draining for people's brains. And it's harder to interpret their message for us. It's harder to kind of understand what they mean. So what I would advise is you want to do like 2.5 feet to 3 feet distance between yourself and your device. So that is most likely much further than most of you have your devices set up right now. It really helps with the connection that you experience with other people, kind of being able to see someone a little bit more in a more natural way that kind of really mirrors the way that we would normally see someone in real life. If your colleagues and team members are open to this, I would also suggest that they do something similar in which they push their devices away as well, and then you all can kind of see each other better. In addition to keeping a distance between yourself and your device, you also want to make sure that your device is at eye level. Eye contact is actually really important for building trust and connection. And typically in face-to-face interaction, we use a lot of eye contact when we're speaking with each other. But in online meetings, eye contact is actually quite tricky because you want to look at the person's face. But when you look at their face, then your eyes are not making contact with the camera. The only way to kind of look like you're making eye contact is if you look in the camera and then the other person or your other team members feel like you're looking straight into their eyes. So what I suggest for this is I recommend that you actually drag your video screen, your little thumbnails of everyone in the meeting, as close to the camera on your screen as you can. This can at least like mitigate the distance that your eyes have to go back and forth when you're watching people's expressions. So you definitely don't want to do the thing where like maybe someone has like, I know a lot of you have 2 screens, 3 screens. You definitely don't want to do the thing where like your meeting's over here and you're looking over here and you're like talking over here. That can make people feel very dismissed. It doesn't really facilitate good connection. And when you're doing online only meetings, you really want to try to get as much connection as you can out of each meeting. So in addition to this kind of eye level, eye contact kind of tip, is that you might also want to raise your device. There's all kinds of stands that you can buy. Sometimes people just like use books, but you do want to kind of have it at eye level, your camera, because a lot of times what you'll see is people will be kind of like this, like they have a device that's too high, it seems a little awkward, or you have someone like here, and that was obviously exaggeration, but it just doesn't look great, and it doesn't feel great to the person that you're having a meeting with. And they might not pick up on it consciously. It probably like doesn't super bother you when you're meeting with someone like this, but there is a subconscious effect of just kind of like maybe the connection that you could have had with each other isn't as strong as if you had kind of facilitated your meeting in a way that mimics real life interaction in a more accurate way. Okay, so tip number 3. Make your meetings shorter if you have a bunch of people in your meeting, or use breakout rooms. Okay, so we actually have research that indicates that if a meeting it has 4 or more people in it and is longer than 30 minutes, those people are most likely multitasking. So they are actually reading their emails, they're checking Slack messages, they're on Teams, doing whatever they're doing, and they're not paying attention to the meeting. So when they're not paying attention to the meeting can be a waste of time. It can result in a lack of connection, and it's just not something that you necessarily want. So you may consider using breakout rooms in a meeting that has more than 4 people in it, and you have people kind of go into their breakout rooms, discuss the topic that needs to be discussed, and then report back to the general group. This allows them to interact and connect with a smaller group and actually get work done instead of, multitasking and getting other work done during this meeting. And of course, we know, I'm sure most of you know by now that multitasking isn't really a thing. If we multitask, we essentially do 2 tasks poorly. So if you cannot do breakout rooms or you don't want to, you may also consider shortening the meeting, taking an hour meeting into a 30-minute meeting. That kind of gives people the sense that, oh, okay, we only have 30 minutes to do this. Like, we got to really focus. We got to get this done. So number 4, you want to create some space in your meeting plan for connection. You may consider doing like a 10-minute intro, kind of 10-minute catch-up in the beginning of your meeting, and actually making time for that so that people can actually check in, they can catch up, they can connect, they can socialize a little bit. Because the thing is, all of those tiny little interactions that were happening face to face no longer happen. There's no water cooler conversation, although I don't know if the water coolers are still a thing. There's no coffee break. There's no passing someone in the hall and just like giving them a smile. There's no just checking in with someone at their desk. All of those things are not happening anymore. So we need to kind of mitigate that by creating time and space for people to connect. It creates better, stronger teams, and it makes people feel more connected with each other. Okay, tip number 5. So this one is actually super, super easy. You can do it like right away with very little effort. You want to turn off your self-cam, because even if you think you do not watch yourself and it doesn't bother you, it does, because we are always aware of our own images, and it is highly, highly distracting. So if you kind of think of the principle that you want to create an environment that mimics face-to-face interaction as closely as possible, this is actually supported by rich communication theory, in which we know that when communication is as close to face-to-face interaction as possible, it is the most impactful. So what you want to do is you want to create an environment in which you mimic face-to-face interaction. But if you are looking at yourself and you're able to see all of your gestures, all of your expressions, etc., kind of like your hair looks disarrayed, which my hair always does. The thing is, you don't normally see this in real life. You do not get to track your appearance in normal life. You get in normal face-to-face conversation, you are focusing on the other person, and that elicits the most connection. But if you are having an online meeting, an online conversation, and you have your self cam open, you are not going to 100% focus on the other person. So close the face cam, only have the other person, put them as close to the camera as possible, and that will elicit a higher level of connection. Okay, I hope that this video was helpful to anyone that is living the online meeting life right now, which I know is many of you. And remember, if you have a question, feel free to submit on my website, which you can submit anonymously, or any of the socials. And I will see you guys next week with another video. All right, take care, and I hope that you guys have a pleasant week of online meetings.